museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of Black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron. Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep-deprived, threatened, tortured, physically and psychologically. They were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated. Now, this endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor in both the North and in the South. And for many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated wealth and political power in their hands. So, when we acknowledge the existence of Black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the Black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls that white supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit for forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery. Now, all of this information, these stories are from the Smithsonian's African American History Museum. And I share this not as a lecture for you, but as a lesson. America, the superpower, is largely possible only because of the superpowers of people who went lifetimes without the same rights of generations who were boosted from their backs. True history should include everything. Yes, the evils and the horrors too. And museums are supposed to be places that protect those stories, the images, the lessons, the very things that inform so much of our current state of our republic, from racism to poverty. No matter how painful, or in the president's words, how horrible the lesson. Now, just listen to one formerly enslaved man describe what slavery is like in his own words.
You know what I'd rather do? If I thought that I'd ever be a slave again,
what's up, that
I'd
man?
take a gun and just end it all right away. Because you're nothing but a dog. You're not a thing but a dog.
We are here in the studio with our panel, Leah.
It's not funny, but Scott, as soon as he hit the panel, Scott Jennings is on his fucking phone. He can give two shits about what was just said just now. That was crazy. I think he was the only person on his phone. That's weird.
Right, Rigueur,
Not
I
weird,
was
but
actually surprised to see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about...
Like, he's the only one on his phone. I think you're a grown-ass man. He can do what he wants to do. I'm just pointing that out. It's just weird.
Even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both stainwash and whitewash American history, and essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of the actual real and horrific parts of our history. And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second. I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum
did.
of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play actually what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
He looks like a fucking reptile.
So was it that he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
You know, I'm really struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly given that.
Like whatever happened? Like why is he? What happened? What about his? You know his what is his favorite African American, his favorite African American friend? Does he not fuck with him anymore? Like what's going on? Like why would he just flip like that? That's crazy.
The tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care and the patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just refuses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He says, "We have to have the hottest country in the world and we want people to talk about it, including our."
Why does he sound like a 15, 16-year-old? Woke is broke. I only hear that being said by teenagers.
Museums. Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original.
Like, for Donald Trump to say that talking about American history is woke, like, I'm starting to believe that Republicans, or they don't know what woke is. I don't think they know what that actually means. If going to an African American museum, and seeing, not just the atrocities but the successes of the past that involved African Americans, if that is woke, then yeah, I mean, I'm so confused here. This is just, go ahead.
Original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country, and that was a necessary thing that happened.
And that's the problem. You fought a war, and for people to get over it, how are people supposed to get over it when the fucking remnants of what happened back in those days, that war you fought, is still being felt in 2025? Get over it. I don't know how many times people who keep telling black people to get over slavery, you're going to have to understand that you're just not going to get over it. It's impossible with a system that's still, it's basically with the system being the way it is. It literally supports every fucking institution, every law that was against black people back in those days. So why stop telling black people to get over it? That's the biggest problem. You want people to stop talking about race and panels and shit like that. You want to stop talking about racism, who's racist, and stop telling people to get over it. How about stop saying that and just listen to what people are saying? Maybe having an actual dialogue might help.
And a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of to try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so
You can't be an American. I'm sorry. I don't. You can't be in America and just ignore what happened. The scars of the past. You have to acknowledge that. This is a great guy. That's the faults, as many faults this country has. This is a great country, but at the same time, you can't just eradicate history. You can't pretend like it doesn't exist. You can't pretend like it doesn't have any impact today. You can't just be like, let's not let it define us when it is a part of America. It's based on, it's a part of its foundation. You can't just walk away from that. You slaughtered natives and slaughtered the indigenous and enslaved black people to build the fucking land that we're on today. So no, you don't get away with that. You don't just be like, that's not defining us. Slavery doesn't define us.
that's what I think.
Make museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country.
Exactly.
And therefore, these horrible, horrific moments in our history, the original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional. And in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past. And to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it. And Bachi may want to comment on this as well. But I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving commodity.
The question I ask when I hear you say that is, why? I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody is proposing that we ignore that it happened. I don't think that's accurate.
I think that the problem is that there are people, and Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are, 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices owned slaves. The people who are on our money every single day owned slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress owned slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, owned slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear owned slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that. But even more importantly, and this is where I believe that Scott and I can find agreement on this issue. Breon and Megan Walker are two of my best friends in the world. Their dad was the first African-American SGA president at the University of South Carolina, right? He was an exec at IBM, but he was one of the first, right? We're still talking about first that emerged and stood on those shoulders. I tell the story often about my mom and dad. My mom helped desegregate high schools. In Hamilton High School in Memphis, Tennessee, my dad shot in the Orangeburg Massacre. This is a part of my story. This isn't some faint, distant history. Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think that American exceptionalism talks about the fact that Black folk enslaved folk help build this country for what it is. Mm-hmm. They built Washington, D.C., but all of us are around this table Abby, myself, all of us, not just Abby and myself, all of us are around this table because of the sacrifices and the blood and the sweat and the tears these people poured
I
in.
also come back to why the focus so much on slavery when it comes to rewriting history. There's a lot of history that it's in these museums, but he's focused on one thing, and that is that there's too much slavery being mentioned in the United States of America. That's very odd, Batya, honestly.
Like, what if Donald Trump had said, there's too much talk about the Holocaust. We should stop talking about the Holocaust. What? How do you just erase history? The United States was a part of one of the biggest wars ever, in World War II, to stop a Holocaust. So you can't just say stop talking about this because it makes me cringe or it just makes me feel uncomfortable. You're the president of the United States. Put your big boy pants on and take it. Like, what the fuck?
So I want to start by saying I actually agree with everything that's been said, and I loved your opening. And so I offer these comments very humbly because it's an honor to be included in this conversation, which is very solemn, and I think we all understand that. And we are all looking for the common ground here. And so what I'm about to say, I don't mean in any way to negate that tone. But starting around 2011, 2012, sociologists started to notice a shift in white liberal opinion polling to where white progressives became more extreme in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. And they called this, the sociologists called it the Great Awakening. And when they postulated where
A Great Awakening? That sounds like a fucking horror movie.
Where did this come from? Why did white progressives suddenly start obsessing over race in a way that was actually far to the left of where Hispanic and Black Americans were on this issue? They found that the media had shifted radically how it talked about these issues. So for example, in 2010, the words white supremacy were mentioned 75 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times.
But the media is different from museums.
In 2020, the words white supremacy were mentioned 700 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times and 2,400 times in
What does that have to
NPR.
do with?
The word racism 4,000 times in 2020. The words white and racial privilege from 2013 to 2019 grew by 1,500% in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the word slavery itself exponentially skyrocketed as a percentage of words. I'm offering this only to suggest,
I understand. I'm just wondering what.
What the fuck does this have to do with about anything? People have the rights. That's the First Amendment. People have a right to speak about shit. They want to talk about white supremacy. They want to advocate against racism. They want to, that's what they want to talk about. They should be allowed to talk about it. What the fuck? I hate when Republicans do this shit. It's just like, we're talking about this, but because you have nothing to argue, I want to divert and deflect to something completely different. If this was like a TikTok panel, she'll be dropped. This has absolutely zero to do with the conversation. What is she talking about right now? It's scary. Like, what? Exactly. It's like saying I'm not racist, but then proceeds to be fucking racist. How about we just stop talking about October 7th? Like, let's just stop talking about it. Even the American hostages, I don't know if they're dead or alive. Just stop fucking talking about it. It's too negative.
Problem with talking about slavery, white supremacy, racism, etc.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that liberals will say, well, this is a reflection of reality. But of course it isn't. This is a reflection of a newfound obsession that was driven by the media.
Well,
and that doesn't reflect the moral.
This is once again, people are conflating bullshit. We're talking about we're talking about the museum. We're talking about exhibits. You're talking about the media. The media is hurting your feelings, or the media is annoying the fuck out of you. Doesn't mean that people should no longer be able to see museums anymore. Like, they shouldn't go to a museum and see what they want to see. They shouldn't read about history or read about slavery in museums. That has nothing to do with the fucking media hurting your fucking feelings. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. That's crazy.
But I do want
or the historical accuracy.
I do want to dive into what you mean by that, because you say that you don't think it's a reflection of reality. Based on what?
Well,
based on the idea that those things don't exist, that white supremacy doesn't
that
exist, racism doesn't exist, that we shouldn't be talking.
She's probably about to say, because it's not as bad as it was. It's not as bad now as it was back then.
based
about it
on the
anymore.
idea, obviously all these things I think are evil, but there's not more slavery now to the tune
Yeah,
of
but I think
but
part of
that's
the
not the-
Told you.
problem,
100% than
respectfully-
there
problem,
was
Batya, is that in the
respectfully,
19,
that's
hold on a
not the-
second, Bakari. Part of the problem is that back, not that long ago, in the 50s, the 60s, even beyond that, when there was actual Jim Crow happening in this country, people were actually treating black people as second-class
Like Jim Crow wasn't even it wasn't even that long ago.
citizens. We weren't talking about those things at
I mean, if you're thinking about historical.
all.
But in
Those words were
2013
virtually never mentioned.
Abby, you don't
so is
think
that
2013
better?
That-
was
but
it
that-
better
you're missing-
then,
Abby,
respectfully,
or
you're
was it
missing-
worse?
You
yeah,
don't
you're
think that
missing the-
2013 is the same as the 1960s,
But you're missing,
right?
respectfully, and I've had this debate
Do
many
you
times.
really think that there's as big a difference
But
between the
but we're missing-
1960s
I,
and
I don't.
We're missing
That's
the
not my point.
point.
My
Okay.
point is that the use of the language in present day,
He wants to jump in this so
or the
bad.
lack of the use of the language back when racism was apparent every single day in the streets of America, doesn't reflect really anything except perhaps a better awareness of the
But
reality that,
that's
we live
not-
in as a
but
country.
that's
Do you
not the
think
point.
the country was more racist in 2013?
That's not the
That's-
point.
I didn't say anything
But-
about
but
whether
you're
the
missing
country was more
the
racist
point
now.
Is we're missing the forest for the trees, because what you have to realize is that the remnants of slavery that emerged through black codes, which were enforced by what is modern day police, what you're talking about in Jim Crow, what you're talking about in the civil rights movement, those fights that weren't even 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. When you talk about George Elmore and everything he gave up so that African Americans could vote in the primary system, when you talk about Harry and Eliza Briggs, who actually were the foundation for Brown versus the Board of Education, when you're talking about Sarah Mae Fleming, who sat down on a bus before Rosa Parks, you're talking about the foundation of where we are today, and you see those remnants of injustice even as we sit here today. You have a quarter of shame in South Carolina. Scott just was in South Carolina along the I-95 corridor where black and brown kids go to school. Their heating and air don't work. You have hospitals that are shut down. You have redlining that affect black people today. You have USDA's, right? The Farm Subsidy Program, which wasn't allocating funds to black people. So yes, although you might want to say, and one of the most amazing things about Barack Obama was that we believed we were in this post-racial society. We are not. And so my point to you is that every ounce of change that we've ever had in this country has been because black blood flowed through the streets. You don't have the 64.
And that's the one negative about Barack Obama. Being the president is now everybody's, people say, well, black people, there's a black person became the president of the United States. So, this country isn't racist anymore. It's impossible.
65 Voting Rights Act without the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You don't have the Voting Rights Act. You don't have Fair Housing Act without King being assassinated. We don't even take the Confederate flag down without 9 people being killed in a church, right? We don't talk about criminal justice reform without a black man being killed in the streets. And so when we are articulating our views to you about the remnants thereof, I understand your point that we are not shackled or in bondage like we were in slavery. However, we have never deconstructed the remnants which still affect us today.
Well, I also
So
want
that
to just
is
add,
a
Based.
political
Based.
point
but
of view
Batya,
that
just,
100%.
Donald Trump is trying to
just as a
address.
factual matter, I mean, you're talking about a time period in which there was the first black president elected in the country. There was the Mother Emanuel massacre that happened in during his presidency, which was, last I checked, about racism and white supremacy. So there have been moments when we have actually correctly in this country grappled with those very things because they've been put on the agenda by our fellow Americans. So I don't understand the desire to try to avoid that when it's not as if it's gone. I mean, people are literally still killing people in this country because of the color of their skin, and suddenly we should just move past it?
I think we've had more than just moments where we have had massive leaps forward in the way we treat each other in this country. I agree with Batya. Where we sit today is vastly different than where we sat.
And I hate to say this, but I think it's really it's difficult for me to take that seriously coming from people who aren't black necessarily. They can be a part of, I'm not saying they can't be a part of the conversation, but for him to say that, what he literally just said, like, we've taken massive leaps forward, and it's like, no, we haven't. Maybe you have, but I don't think like the system views black people in a way that shows to me that there's massive leaps that have been taken. I haven't
in
seen
the
it.
1960s or the 1920s or the
I don't think anybody's
1860s.
disputing
And,
that.
and it's not even close. It's
I
not
don't
even
know, but I don't
close.
think anybody's disputing that. I think it's just a question of, do we need to just stop talking about it because we're not in
I don't
Jim
think
Crow
anyone's
anymore?
proposing that. But what I do think he is proposing.
That's exactly what he is. I'm sorry, I'm pausing, but that's exactly what he's proposing. When you're saying, hey, stop talking about how bad slavery was, you literally want people to stop talking about it because you want people to only think about the positives of America. I mean, you can chew and walk. No, you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. You can talk about the good and the bad of America, but that's what makes it America, America. You should be able to speak your mind. You should be able to read what you want to read. You should be able to see what you want to see. Like, I'm confused on the attack on the fucking museums that are speaking about history. And it's just, unfortunately, it's targeting black people. It's targeting black and brown people when it comes to slavery. I don't understand this.
And
But if we're talking about, if you want to put up the fucking Confederacy, who actually indulged in slavery and had slaves, he has no problem putting those statues back up.
I think this is worth discussing, is that as we go into our 250th anniversary, how are we presenting ourselves to the world? Are we presenting ourselves as a country that is obsessed with our worst moment, or are we presenting ourselves as a country that managed to overcome our worst moment and have been improving ever
It's
since?
not about being obsessed with our worst moment. I mean, again, I think it's an important part, Last year, 17 million people visited the Museum for African American History, History and Culture. And I think that's an important number because part of what they saw was that this was a story about African American resilience. This is a story about community. It is a story about democracy and triumph. But it is also a story about two parts of the same coin that you can't have. And I think this is to Bakari's point, that you can't have that story of resilience. You can't have that story of expansive democracy without understanding how it happened and how we got there. You can't erase slavery and say, well, it's over and done with, and now we're not going to talk about it.
A quick moment, though, on Donald Trump's role in all of this, because I think that kind of gets glossed over. I mean, the idea that the president is saying that he is going to have his attorneys go through the museums the same way that he did the colleges and the universities is, as far as I can tell, not something that we've seen in this country in a very long time.
It's fucking racist. I'm sorry, that's racist. That's racist. Ask him about the Confederacy if he's going to put those statues as taken down. If he's going to put those back up or put them in a museum, let's ask him about that. Are we going to talk about that? We still talk about Christopher Columbus. Is that a good thing when you find out what actually happened when the Pilgrims came to America and slaughtered all the indigenous people? Are we not allowed to talk about that anymore? Like, hey, give me something good. Hey, give me something good that has happened historically about America other than fucking wars. And you can, if you want to call that good, that's crazy. Other than that, I can't think of anything positive that I can put in a museum for America that's been good historically.
And it's also something that deserves to be pointed out as not normal.
I think it's not normal, but also, is this a good use of time for the President of the United States to be doing this? I think you saw that clip in 2017 when he was praising
Also, Epstein.
the African American History Museum. He was talking about his tour and the visit. I'm not sure what changed from now until then. I'm not aware of other exhibits or other like language being inserted into anything that's being shown at the museum.
What's changed is the backlash on the right.
Yeah, I think
against
that's,
anything that has to do with race.
But
And he's leaning into that
saw
because
that.
that is where his political base is. But we also have a responsibility
Because he was
to the
fresh.
facts
He
and
was
to
fresh. He
actual
just got
history,
back
not
into
just some
office. He wasn't
version
going to do that.
That suits us in this political moment.
I don't think that. I think that the president is throwing stuff against the wall even when he tweets stuff like this. And I think that you have to be cautious about discounting people for their remarks, particularly when you have the president of the United States. But coming from the South where I'm from, you don't have to necessarily read about your history in history books, which is fascinating. Because you go to the barbershop and people tell you about when King came to town. I mean, people actually, they slept on jailhouse floors, they smelled the bullets come by, and so you have this griot type of culture. The danger, however, is not with Donald Trump, who's an 80-year-old man. And this is what we haven't tackled. The danger is with people like Dylan Roof, who had as much hate in his heart as Lester Maddox and other individuals during that
I
time.
highly disagree because I don't think you have Dylan Roof if you don't have individuals who are in power who actually represent certain shit like Donald Trump. And I'm not saying Donald Trump is a white supremacist, outgoing white supremacist, white nationalist, but I don't think he denies it. I don't think he disowns it. I think he has a lot of people in his fucking cabinet. Steve Bannon, his first term, that kind of is like weird. Now you have Stephen Miller, who's an outknown nationalist, running around here telling people what to do, telling ICE what to do with undocumented immigrants. No, I do think that Donald Trump is dangerous. I do think he's a problem, and I do think Dylan Roof is a product of individuals like Donald Trump who have influence, platforms, and influences. That's how Dylan Roofs happen. They fall down a pipeline because they listen to somebody whisper sweet nothings, and they feel like what they're doing is right.
Time period. We have an entire generation who will discount that history. And I prefer, and I think this, kind of to your point, progressives and liberals and even people to the right, particularly now, have gone to this point where we don't want to have the free flow and exchange of ideas, where we cancel people who have ideas that are different from yours. And I think we have to get back to a point of having more education, more books, more museums, more history in those museums, more exchange of ideas so that we become a more educated country, because right now I feel like this country's dumb as hell.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Next for us, a red state is now giving teachers.
This is just a fucking distraction from the Epstein files, by the way. He's doing any and everything he can to distract them from the fact that, one, he got railroaded. He got railed by Putin, and two, the Epstein files. He's doing everything he can to distract people from that, so he's doing this bullshit. But I would like to see him do this, but then at the same time bring back those statues that he says he wants to bring back. Those what was it? Those Robert Lee or whatever the fuck statues, those racist ass statues that were taken down in Charlottesville. 20 back in his first term. Yeah, I would love to see him put that back up there, but then talk about, hey, we only want to talk about the good things, in America, but make sure that we visually see the Confederacy. Like, if you really want to talk about the good things, get rid of the Confederate flag, make it illegal. Make the Confederate flag illegal. Make it treasonous, as it should be. All right, that's just what I gotta say about that, because that's fucking weird, man. That's gross.
Ideology tests to weed out the woke. Here are some of the questions that they're going to be asked. Plus, more Republican governors.
Joining us now, Vice President of Mercury Public Affairs and former White House Deputy Director of Platforms, Megan Coyne. She's also served as the social media director for New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy's office. Also with us, Democratic strategist and MSNBC political analyst Basil Smikle, staff writer for The Atlantic and author of its newsletter, Galaxy Brain.
Yeah.
Jillian Michaels doubles down on the mention of black degeneracy. Here it is.
He's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
Okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
can't tie slavery.
let's talk about the fact.
Slavery in America.
You want Cocomelon? Bet. 1 second. Let me see. Cocomelon. Let's see. Cocomelon. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? That's not Cocomelon. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is this? Is this Cocomelon? I've never seen it. That's not Cocomelon. That's not Cocomelon. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why did I do that? Why am I listening to people? Get the fuck out of here.
Jillian Michaels
I ought to block you for that.
doubles down on
Pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
can't tie slavery.
let's talk about the fact.
Slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know who
in
was the first race to try to end
My bad.
slavery?
Wait a second.
Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is
that
an
you're trying to
extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism. I would say.
I'm really
Historical
surprised.
revisionism. Do you realize that
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and
I'm
who
not.
was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is
in the
that
context of American history.
Okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that it was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad.
I don't
and
think
it's totally partisan.
We don't, first of all, we don't.
What? He's the only one that's saying white people bad. You know, probably like if I mean, if that's how you feel.
We don't have time to litigate all of this.
Of course we don't, because then you're going to lose the argument. And if everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Excuse me?
Shouldn't you know? I kind of find it funny. I just saw this documentary called The Biggest Loser. It was on Netflix. There was this documentary on Netflix, and oddly, at the ending credits, they said Jillian Michaels refused to be a part of this documentary, although everybody else was, because Jillian Michaels didn't want to talk about how she drugged those contestants with caffeine against the doctor's orders. But I was curious for her to talk about why she drugged those people.
That's a reminder. The first time we talked about this, provided the facts, and obviously, Ms. Michaels, you get your facts about racism from Nick Fuentes. Here's the thing. She doubled down. Now, this is after you have the opportunity to listen to folk tell you the truth, and I'm sure somebody on social media reminded you of what facts actually are. Then the response to the proclamation is made. Here it is.
Less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves.
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery?
Here we go. Here we go. Oh,
it's an incredibly misleading statistic, because even the Americans who did not own slaves also participated in slavery by benefiting from the economic system of slavery, the political system of slavery, and culturally treating black people as if they were not human. But Jillian didn't acknowledge any of those things, and that, I think, is really what shocked so many of us at the table. Since then, she's doubled down, and she's even said that she had reached out to the White House before coming on the show to ask them about which Smithsonian exhibits they wanted to dispute. She acknowledged that none of the talk.
First of all, I hope that was a joke. Jillian Michaels is not Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm not sure if that's what you were alluding to, trying to make it seem as if she looks like Jamie Lee Curtis. She does not look like Jamie Lee Curtis. We were not doing that to Ripley. Okay. We will not do that. We don't do that here.
Talking points provided by the White House, according to her, had
to do with
but
slavery,
we don't do that
here.
And yet she still decided to downplay it at the Newsnight table.
What
Fast
are you
forward
talking
a couple
about?
of days later, and now President Trump is actually also downplaying slavery, suggesting that the Smithsonian...
Wait, don't tell me Jamie Lee Curtis did something racist. Please don't do that. Don't do that to me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but don't do that to me. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're about to tell me? You're about to tell me she said something problematic?
talks about it too much and overemphasizes the negative of slavery in the context of American history.
That's correct. And Ms. Abby Phillip, great job, by the way. I'm very impressed. So, as Michael said, yeah, I called White House. Yep, I called White House, had a conversation. It's called a co-conspiracy, okay? It is a messaging co-conspiracy. It is intentional, it is by design, and they've been doing it for a very long time. Now, Ms. Michaels responds to tell her side of the story at an event. Here it is.
I go on CNN and I get the topics ahead of time. So one of them is that Trump is trying to revise history by asking the Smithsonian to revisit some of their installations.
What does that mean, like art piece?
I wasn't sure.
Okay.
So I asked the same question.
Wait, he's not asking. He literally said he's going to send his lawyers down there to actually investigate it. Donald Trump, if you think he will not try to remove those fucking exhibits, he will try to do that. He's not asking. He's just hinting at something that he will do, most likely do, or will at least attempt to do. I learned a long time ago that if Trump says something like that, he will do anything to defer people or take people away from the Epstein files.
So I reached out to the comms team at the White House. I said, listen, this is going to come up. Can I ask you what installations is the administration taking umbrage with? Can you send it to me? So they send me a document and it's about 50 pages.
Oh my word.
Not one thing in the document, not one installation actually is about slavery. This one woman on the other side immediately goes to Trump is whitewashing slavery. So with unbelievable confidence, knowing what was in there, I'm like, no, he's not. And then when I
Wait, when she was on the CNN panel, they were referring to the tweet Trump said. Trump literally said that the National Museum, Smithsonian specifically, was talking too much about slavery. Slavery bad. We're focusing too much on slavery. Literally, you only think about that when you go to these museums or you're watching these movies or you're having a class or you're on a panel having a conversation about that. No one's drinking orange juice at the fucking table while eating pancakes thinking, oh my God, slavery in 2025. No one's doing that. This is just something that people, if you want to learn about what happened in history, you can go to these museums. And now the orange doofball is having an issue with that because he feels like it's making America look bad. It's like America will never get rid of that fucking scar, no matter how much you try to cover it up.
said no, he's not, then Abby Phillips and Richie Torres essentially, I guess, made some sort of assumption that I was trying to defend slavery. I'm not quite sure where they got that impression. We constantly talk about white supremacy, but we look the other way with black degeneracy. It begets white hostility that then validates and begets white degeneracy. And it's this impossible cycle. So I turned around to Richie Torres and I was like, do you realize that less than 2% of Americans white Americans owned slaves?
Wow.
And the reason I say this is I'm not trying to whitewash slavery.
You're just downplaying it.
It's because not all white people are the enemy. White people, we really don't understand. We don't. And
it's true. I wouldn't think all white people are the enemy. I think white people who say all white people are not the enemy are the actual enemy. That's just my
then black people are like, I don't have to explain this to you. And it's like, maybe you do. Maybe you do. And white people, even though you may not have been responsible for it, and you don't want to get another lecture, I think you need to sit there and listen long enough to understand why the pain is still there.
That's the fucking thing about, yeah, you're right. The Jim Crow era was not even like, what, 50, 60 years ago? It's not that. Come on. Yeah.
Man.
And it's like, even if the statistics support the 2%, that's whatever, right? That doesn't change the fact that it still happened to a minority of people, right? And not to mention that the majority of people white people benefited off of slavery back in those days. Literally, there's no arguing about this. I don't understand what Jillian Michaels is. I don't think any sane conservative would argue that was the case. Like, I think the biggest problem here is they're allowing Donald Trump to just fucking say and do whatever he wants without any fucking pushback, and they're mad that people are reacting to it. Like if you're a sane person, even if you're a fucking conservative, you can listen to what was just said by Jillian Michaels and be like, yo, shut the fuck up, dog. Talk about those people you drugged on The Biggest Loser. Like what the fuck, man?
No. I'm not doing this because I think I'm not doing this because I think there's a lot of hope for you. That's all. Fact checking is part of the role of one who proposes to be a giver of truth. You just read a document from the White House and said, oh, hell, we've been wrong about racism and slavery this whole time. 20%, madam, of southern states had populations that owned slavery, 20%. Damn near 70 to 80% of the enterprise was supported by law, culture.
Random, Baloo. I just want you to understand, this is just random and completely off topic, but I want to mention it because I don't, I will never stream Jubilee again or Surrounded, at least on YouTube. I might stream it on Twitch. The last time I streamed Jubilee, I got the video taken down, and then 2, I got a strike. And that strike is now fucking shadowing my fucking videos. Videos that would normally get like 3K views are now getting like 15, 20, 30. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, I will never play, and I gotta wait till October until that strike is up. So I'm never streaming Jubilee on YouTube again. And I've seen other content creators do that. They just post pictures. No, it's not. It's just, I think Jubilee is, I don't know. I think Jubilee, I don't know why. It was easy to stream it, but I feel like if you don't have the following, you won't be able to survive. Like, I still see bigger streamers stream it, but I haven't seen, like, smaller streamers, people who are not as big, stream it anymore, because, like, the shit will get copyrighted, will get taken down.
Oh, sure.
That's right, because I was going to do the Amanda Sellers one, but, like, I didn't want to risk
insurance
it.
companies put up.
But I might still do it on Twitch probably sometime this week, maybe next weekend.
The picture, full mass. I just want you to take a good look at MAGA's choice, okay? So here we go. After comments Michaels made last week on CNN's Newsnight with Abby Phillip, Abby had to do a whole damn new commentary and post it. This was so outrageous. About the breadth of slavery, and blew up across the internet. She now has made claims about black degeneracy. This happened when Michaels was a speaker at the 10X Ladies Conference. This was in Florida, August 16th, sat down with the conference's host for a conversation. That's when she said this. Now, let's talk about the 2% claim, okay? So contextually, this is what she left out. She left out the part where half of the United States at the time of the Civil War seceded in hopes of preserving slavery. They left because this was such a big deal to them. Regardless of the number of white people who physically owned black people, a whole lot more white people definitely fought for the rights of those owners of people who happen to be black. A whole lot more. To own black folk was a thing. You can't own a human being. It's a ridiculous concept. It's insane to even consider the point.
See, this is why One Piece is trash.
And it somehow makes people forget what slavery is. Once again, slavery is human trafficking, with all of the perils that come with that, including sexual assault, murder, abuse. So human trafficking, sanctioned, legalized, statutorily protected in the United States of America. All right, Confederate states at this point, a whole lot of people owned them. Duke professor Sandy Darty has been quoted as saying that certain Confederate states had populations where 20% of white people owned enslaved black folk. And in Mississippi and South Carolina, the number hit up to 50%. Hannah Jones, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who created the 1619 Project, who has spent her career reframing American history around the legacy of slavery, posted her rebuttal. She detailed how cotton picked by slave labor represented
I really want to cover this
of all U.S. exports,
but
fueling the country's bank.
Yeah, I really want to do the Jubilee here because I do want to. I got a lot of fucking things to say about this one. Yeah, it was truly weird, I might say.
All right, guys, got some massive breaking news here for you. So this is in the Miami Herald. As U.S. warships approach Caribbean waters, Maduro mobilizes 4.5 million militias. Okay, so we're going to get into this, but you have 3 different U.S. warships being sent to Venezuela. You also have 4,000 Marines being activated to be sent to Venezuela. So this is not looking good, y'all. This is not looking good. Now, Trump also signed a directive the other week to greenlight attacks on Mexican drug cartels in Mexico in violation of Mexico's sovereignty. So you have the Mexican government going, we don't want you fucking bombing in here. What are you talking about? And you have Trump going, we're going to bomb there. That's what we're going to do. So he threatens Greenland.
Sounds like something you would fucking say. Just like that.
He's already bombed Somalia. He's already bombed Yemen. He's already illegally bombed Iran. He tried a coup in Venezuela in his last term and didn't succeed. Remember all the Juan Guaido bullshit where they pretended like this guy who was not the leader of Venezuela? They just pretended like he was. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. They're just like, oh yeah, he's the president. No, he's fucking not. He never won the fucking election. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Maddening. And the media played along with it. They played along with it. Well, now, It appears like some behind-the-scenes decision has been made, illegally, by the way, illegally, to do war with Venezuela, or at least attempt another regime change. But since we got warships going there and Marines going there, it looks like more.
How many times does the United States have to go across the border and destabilize a country and then bitch about the undocumented or immigrants or the immigrants trying to cross the border to our? We fuck them up. We go over there, we fuck them up. We destabilized their fucking country, and they were surprised when they tried to come over and was like, "Hey man, you fucked us. Can you give us a hand here? I just want to come in there. I want to work, you know, blah blah blah." We're surprised about that. Like, this is crazy. I'll tell you what. He floated something and I won't put this past him. Remember, he can't be president for a third term, right? But I don't know about. I don't know if there's ever been. I have to look into the history if there's ever been a moment, but I don't know if in the United States that you can have an election if the United States is currently engaged in a war. I don't know. I remember him talking about something like that with the whole Zelensky and Putin thing. Or with the Zelensky meeting, he mentioned something about that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is something, because there's nothing going on. We have no reason being here.
More than just a regime change operation where it might be the CIA or some covert method. This looks like it's knock knock bitch, we're here and we're going to try to topple you. So this is crazy. You want to talk about controlled by the military industrial complex? I've already seen speculation that Erik Prince, the mercenary war criminal who gave us Blackwater, where all these innocent civilians got killed in Iraq by Blackwater, Christian fundamentalist extremists who were invading that country, apparently he may be the one whispering in Trump's ear about Venezuela, and he may have gotten the green light for this. This is wild. All right, so here we go. In response to an increased U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro announced that his government will activate a special plan to mobilize over 4.5 million militia members across the country to defend national sovereignty. The announcement follows reports that 3 U.S. Navy destroyers, the USS Gravely, USS Jason Dunham, and USS Sampson, are heading to the southern Caribbean with thousands of Marines aboard as part of a major counter-narcotics operation. The move coincides with Washington's recent decision to raise the bounty for Maduro's capture to an unprecedented $50 million.
Holy shit.
That's the other thing. And I believe...
Nope. It's not right.
We covered this the other day.
Nope.
That you had Pam Bondi do a press conference, and in the press conference,
I'm not
she
doing
said,
anybody's
we're offering
bidding.
$50 million for Nicolas Maduro. Well, that was a sign that, oh yeah, it's on again. It's on like Donkey Kong, and we're going to go for this motherfucker. We're going to try to do it again. So again, stop and think about this. We were told, America first, make America great again. America first. The forgotten men and women will never be forgotten again. That's what we were told. And oh, would you look at that? Trump gets in office, already fucking started in...
Shit, I kind of the 50 million makes me want to get the old band back together and we can just, suit up one more time, and head over, to Venezuela and make us some quick money,
Illegal war with Iran, attack them when they weren't going to attack us and they weren't building a fucking nuke. Arming and funding a genocide in Gaza, greenlighting the total destruction of Gaza, reoccupation of Gaza, taking over the entire West Bank, doing this on behalf of his Israeli donor benefactors like Miriam Adelson, by the way. Now gonna try to take Venezuela. Motherfucker, are you gonna give us anything for the American people? Anything. In fact, what did Trump do? He looked at the good things Biden did, like the CHIPS Act, for example, which will create hundreds of thousands of jobs, the infrastructure bill. Again, Biden was on track to create, 800,000 manufacturing jobs? What does Trump do? He goes in there, he kills the funding for those bills. So now, we're outsourcing jobs. Mr. Anti-Outsourcing, America First. Turns out we're outsourcing jobs under him. We're killing 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We're launching a trade war, which further will lead to increased unemployment. And at the same time, he's destroying the U.S. economy day in, day out, unemployment going up, inflation going up, manufacturing jobs going overseas. You're going to start a war with Venezuela. You're going to start a fucking war with Venezuela. On what planet? Is Maduro a threat to me?
I thought he was anti-war. Like, what's going on?
Maduro a threat to you? What is Maduro doing that's putting your life in danger? Is there even the pretense anymore? Back in the day, they had the respect. The government had the respect for the population enough to at least lie that your ass is in danger because of this foreign government that we got to do something about. They at least used to lie like there was some imminent threat of them coming to attack us, right? Now, Trump doesn't even bother. I'll bomb Somalia Monday. I'll bomb Yemen Tuesday.
Yeah,
I'll
cows
do
a
a coup
goat.
in Venezuela on Wednesday. And you can shut the fuck up and take it. You can sit there and take it because Trump himself is swimming in however many millions of dollars given to him by the military-industrial complex. And he's going to represent them. He's not going to represent you. He doesn't give a fuck about you. He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you're going through. Oh, you can't pay your... Oh, you're going bankrupt from medical bills. Oh, too bad. Well, I'll lie and say I'm cutting drug prices by 1,000% and 1,400%. In reality, he's doing no such thing. In reality, he signed an executive order on day one that increases drug prices. Increases it. Full of shit through and through. Through and through. Unbelievable, bro, what we're witnessing here. All right, so they continue in the Miami Herald. They say, Maduro and several of his top allies have been indicted by U.S. prosecutors for allegedly turning Venezuela into a narco state through the so-called Cartel of the Suns. Maduro has dismissed the charges as rotting rerun aimed at justifying foreign intervention. Quote, this week, I'm launching a special plan to ensure coverage by more than 4.5 million prepared, activated, and armed militia members across the national territory, Maduro declared Monday during a televised event, flanked by senior military commanders. He said the move is needed to counter what he described as the extravagant, bizarre, and outlandish threats from the United States. He also urged his political base to accelerate the creation of rural and industrial militias, rifles and missiles for the rural forces to defend Venezuela's territory, sovereignty, and peace, Maduro exclaimed, adding that the similar weapons would be distributed to workers in factories. Hey guys, where the fuck is the media talking about this? Why are you listening to a YouTube asshole who rants? Why are you listening to a prick like me? Why isn't CNN talking about this? Why isn't MSNBC talking about this? Why isn't the nightly news talking about this? Why is this not all over your feed? We're going to do another fucking war, another one. And we're the only one talking about it? We're the only fucking ones talking about it. It's despicable, it's disgraceful, it's deplorable. By the way, so here is Fascist Barbie talking to us. Carolyn Levitt.
Barbie's crazy.
She says the following.
I wanted to ask about the 3 U.S. warships that are being sent to Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at possibility of boots on the ground there?
What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country. And with that, I will leave you all, and we will...
It's so incredible because both Nayib Bukele, our ally, and the U.S., we released drug cartel members, we released MS-13 members. We literally just allowed in the entire family of the drug kingpin, El Chapo. Trump just let them in with open arms and welcomed them. And at the same time, the argument that you're making is that, Venezuela is a narco state or something, so that's why we got to go after them. None of this shit is even fucking true. The reality is they have fucking oil, and you want the oil. And the whole idea of they believe in the old school philosophy, this old...
So my only problem with this is I like Wawa. And Wawa gets their gas from Venezuela.
Realist philosophy of, look, the U.S., we own and dominate our hemisphere. And Venezuela is a rogue actor in our hemisphere because they don't submit to U.S. hegemony. And so this is an attempt to make them submit to U.S. hegemony, get rid of Maduro, and put in somebody else. That's what this is. The idea that this has anything to do, it's about protecting our children with drugs or so. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? God, I hate them so much. They're such liars. They're so fucking despicable. And this is all Trump does now. All Trump does is invade shit. All Trump does is attack places. Right? I mean, this motherfucker invaded Los Angeles and now Washington, D.C., and now he wants to add another country to the list of places he wants to illegally invade and fucking started an illegal war with Iran, attacked them when they weren't going to attack us and they weren't building a
President Trump has
been with open arms and welcomed them.
There you go.
And at the same time, the argument that you're making is that...
No, I think Trump had said that he's probably going to... He already called Baltimore too far gone, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to deploy troops in... Baltimore soon.
Oh yeah, Venezuela is a narco state or something, so that's why we got to go after them. None of this shit is even fucking true. The reality is they have fucking oil, and you want the oil. And the whole idea of they believe in the old school philosophy, this old realist philosophy of, look, the U.S., we own and dominate our hemisphere. And Venezuela is a rogue actor in our hemisphere because they don't submit to U.S. hegemony. And so this is an attempt to make them submit to U.S. hegemony, get rid of Maduro, and put in somebody else. That's what this is. The idea that this has anything to do, oh, yeah, it's about protecting our children with drugs or so. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? God, I hate them so much. They're such liars. They're so fucking despicable. And this is all Trump does now. All Trump does is invade shit. All Trump does is attack places, right? I mean, this motherfucker invaded Los Angeles and now Washington, D.C., and now he wants to add another country to the list of places he wants to illegally invade and bomb and attack. It's enough already. It's enough already. Anybody who's still in the cult, you don't have my sympathy. You don't have my empathy. You don't have my respect. I think you're a joke. I think you're a clown. I think you're a dipshit. I think if you couldn't realize at this late date what this guy is and how much of a despicable, disgusting failure he is and how much he's tanking this country, I think there's no hope for you if that's the case. I think there's no hope for you. Or go ahead. Let's see MAGA go out there. Hey, when the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing happened, what happened to the Republican base? Their support for Trump went up. It went up. Same thing with the bombing Iran. We covered the polls. When he bombed Iran, the support went up among the Republican base. Everybody else was like, what the fuck is this? The Republican base loved it. So go ahead, let's see. Now starting another illegal war with Venezuela this time, I'm sure the support will go up when we launch another illegal, dumbass war. But here we are. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out.
I don't know who the fuck that is. That's not Kyle. Who the fuck that is. Yeah. That is state of affairs. I'm telling you, we are cooked. We are cooked. You got like another 3 years of this, so you might as well. What did Scott Jennings say? Let's get over it. Because we got like 3 years of 3 and 3 in some quarter, 3 and some months, years of this bullshit. Yeah, I think that this is a war that he's trying to start so he can find a reason, and he'll probably try to drag this out or start another war come election time when it's time for his ass to get out the White House to stay in power. He's going to do the same thing that Bibi Netanyahu's doing. The only reason the Gaza shit is still going on because Bibi Netanyahu knows that once the war is over, his ass is out of office, and chances are his ass is going to be prosecuted for something. So he knows damn well that he doesn't want to end the shit in Gaza because he knows exactly what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump tries to do the same thing. I got to read the laws. I don't know if that's allowed, if, we can have elections. I can't remember what happened in fucking World War. I can't remember. I have to go look back in history before they actually take that away. But yeah. Don't forget about the Epstein